Hello, everybody, and welcome to Galactic Tabletop. I'm Alex.
And I'm Cullen.
Today, we're going to be talking about how to build your character in Stars Without Number, starting at level 1. So, when it comes to starting up your character, you have two options for rolling your stats. The first is a random roll of 3d6 for each stat. If you choose to roll them, you get to replace one of those stats with a 14. So, if you roll like your 6 stats and there's one you don't like, you get to replace it with a 14. However, if you do choose to roll your stats, you are supposed to go in order, starting at strength, going down to charisma. Rolling in order allows you for a more random character build, and it can be a lot of fun if you don't know what you want to play or have no preference to what you want to play. If you really know what you want to play, you can talk to your Galaxy Master, of course, and ask them if you can place them in any order that you choose. I personally find this to be more fun.
Yeah, I feel like I've never played this before, but when I've played other RPG games like Dungeons and Dragons, or I've played Bubblegum Shoe, you kind of like it's more fun to like create a character that like you have imagined than like a random one.
Yeah, and the random's really good for players who are more backseat gamers and really aren't that into I don't know, maybe the role play aspect or don't really know what they want to do yet.
True.
But if you don't want to roll, there is a second option. And this second option is kind of like your standard array. You get to place them in any order you like, and the array is 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, and 7. So you get a good stat, and then the rest are kind of mid. However, in this game, stats aren't as nearly potent as they are in Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So, for example, you can only get up to a +2 modifier in Stars Without Number, and you can only go down to a -2 modifier. Yeah. So Stars Without Number is really more set on your skill sets than they are on your stats. And the way that they arrange this is for a -2 modifier, you have to have a stat of 3. Which, funny enough, I actually rolled a 3 on my first character, and that's what I replaced with the 14. Naturally.
Yeah. Because like you roll them all, and then if you have one that's bad, you can replace it with a 14.
Exactly. And then 4 through 7 is a -1 modifier, and then 8 through 13 is a 0 modifier. 14 through 17 is a +1, and 18 is your +2. 18 is the max stat you can go to.
Yeah, 6 times 3.
Yes.
I've done some math.
Just easier to memorize it. All right. So like I said, stats are much more important. And when it comes to your rolls, you're not rolling a d20, you're rolling 2d6 for your skill checks. So you have a much better average, I would say, than a random d20. So if you have a +2, that's actually going to be really great because you're going to be rolling on average a 6, which is going to be +2, which is 8, right? So you're gonna be having a better median than you would have with a d20. So once you've rolled your stats, you get to pick your background. And picking your background is where you're actually going to get the most skills. You get to choose from a wide range, and they do not have to necessarily match your skill set, your attribute modifiers. And that's what I really like about this game is that your attributes and your skills are actually separated, unlike in other role-playing games where, hey, your sleight of hand is completely linked to your dex.
True.
In this game, they really emphasize on if you can make the situation work with an attribute, it's what you're supposed to use.
Uh,
So
okay.
you can get, yeah, so like if you wanted to, I don't know, pickpocket somebody in this game, instead of using your dex skills, you might be able to use your charisma if you wanted to make a performance roll for it. Like, hey,
Yeah.
and you would
That,
have to explain that to the Galaxy Master, and they would have to, of course, make the ruling.
okay.
One of my favorite things to do as a Galaxy Master is will actually tell my players, hey, if you do this skill, I'll give you this DC. And if you do this skill, I'll do this DC based on how you guys describe the situation. So,
Yeah. Or like what would work better on a certain NPC or situation.
yeah, example, one of
Yeah.
my players was trying to tell if a piece of dynamite they got from a con artist essentially was real diamondite.
Dynamite. Yeah.
And I told him, all right, if you want, you can either roll a no check, which is basically your intelligence with your skill modifier, or a fixed check, which is basically your tinker tools. If you're playing Dungeons
Yeah.
and Dragons.
Yeah.
However, if you roll a fixed check, I'm going to say that you break the piece of dynamite, but you get to learn because they already bought it. And if you roll a no check, it's going to be a higher DC, but you still have the stick of dynamite.
True.
And they really like that aspect. So I find it fun.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of your skills and attributes.
Yep. So when you pick your background, you have, of course, options on how to get your skills.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of has a bonus if you want to make it random, and a I don't want to call it a punishment, but a debuff, if you will, if you want to pick them. So everyone gets a free skill with your
Uh-huh.
background, and the background will list the free skill you get.
Yeah.
Then you have an option. You can either choose to pick from two different tables. One table is called the growth table, and the other table is called the learning table. If you roll, you can pick from these two tables the die you're going to roll and roll it. And you get to do that 3 times. So if you want to pick 2 from the learning table, you roll 2d8s. And if you want to roll from the growth table, you roll from that with a d6. And that's what you get. You get three rolls. Divvy them up however you want, which is
Okay.
nice. And you
When
get the free skill. Go
when we
ahead.
yeah when we get to this step, you're gonna have to explain that to me because it's like I can get it mentally, but it's
Yeah.
not going to retain.
Yes, that's exactly why we're going to be doing that character build.
Okay.
Um, and then if you choose to take any skill you want that's listed, you only get to pick from the learning table.
Mm-hmm.
However, you only get to pick 2, but they're any 2 you want, and you can pick the same skill. So if you wanted to be really good at trade and get some good trade discounts, you could pick trade twice, and then you'd have a skill level 1. But I think we're jumping ahead on that skill.
Yeah.
So you get to pick any skill you want, and you still get the free skill.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a third option, but the third option is more like it's called the quick skills, and you don't get the free skill. You just get the 3 quick skills, which is meant, hey, if you want this background, these are what most commonly picked.
All
So,
right.
but the quick skills are basically getting the free skill and 2 that you would pick. So just choose the 2 you really want. But there are a
Okay.
lot of go ahead.
Oh no, keep going.
There are a lot of backgrounds to choose from.
Yeah.
For
Notice.
almost any situation you can think of, there's a background and skills for you to use it. They
Mhm.
really went all out, and I absolutely love each and every background that they have made.
So this setting, like, are you usually playing some kind of like smugglers or like it really could be anything, but is that like is there a certain kind of party? I feel like it's designed less for, maybe it's just sci-fi in general. It's designed less for like we're going on a quest to save the world, and more of like we're trying to survive the crazy galaxy.
Yeah, that's actually kind of exactly it. Um, this because Stars Without Number is quite literally, I mean, in this title, Stars Without Number, you go to different planets and you kind of get missions, get paid, um, solve problems. You're not there to solve the universe's problems. You're there
Yeah,
to kind of survive, to either achieve your own personal goal. Of course, you can have an over arc for it,
yeah,
which is always a lot of fun. But
yeah,
it's not necessarily like Dungeons and Dragons. You gotta slay the evil king, you know.
yeah. You're just trying to
That
live,
is,
laugh, love in space.
yeah, sure. Live, laugh, love in space. My players right now, they are really just a component I made for them is I gave them a really crappy ship. For them in the
Uh,
beginning, they got a free ship. However, it constantly breaks down, and right now they literally have to survive, get to a new planet, fix the ship so that they can get to another planet. And it might sound more tedious on here, but like I always have missions and jobs for them to do on each planet so that they can get the resources and funds to fix their ship so that they can achieve their own personal goals.
this reminds me. Have you ever listened to? I'm only halfway through this particular season of Dimension 20, but the Starstruck Odyssey.
I haven't listened to them. I know that doesn't Dimension 20 do Worlds Without Number?
The host does Worlds Without Number, like in some of the
Yeah.
performers, but there's a season. It's Dungeons and Dragons, but the setting and like the play style is very similar to what you're describing, and it's Starstruck Odyssey, and it's like their space, like kind of like smugglers, and it's very hijink heavy as they like try to fly their like hot dog shaped ship across the galaxy. I
Yeah,
think you would
so
enjoy it.
it's very similar because Worlds Without Number and what they system I believe that they're using is all written by the same author, Kevin Crawford.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We love some
So
synergy.
yes. Worlds Without Number is one of Kevin Crawford's more popular ones. Stars Without Number, I think, is his best book. Um,
Ooh, hot take.
yeah, well, there's just not a lot of good sci-fi genre tabletops, and
Yeah.
Stars Without Number really nails it on the head, I think.
Yeah, I
So,
mean that's a thing. Like I think there's a lot of different fantasy ones, and then like
mhm.
there's a lot of debate if there's any good superhero ones or sci-fi ones or like which one, you know. So once you start leaving that genre, it gets
Yeah, it,
it's a tougher competition to kind of like break ahead.
yeah. So the I love Stars Without Number, and Worlds Without Number is fantastic. They Worlds Without Number, Stars Without Number, and Cities Without Number are all written by Kevin Crawford, and they are all completely linkable.
All
So
right, guess
yeah,
I'll be doing some googling when we finish this.
yes. Something I really love to do is make a World Without Number and Stars Without Number crossover. So
Ooh, yeah.
yeah. Anyways, back on to how to build a character. um, we are now going to get to pick a class. And so your class is what will provide you with a few extra abilities to give you your edge in combat, role play, or a mix in between. There are 4 classes you can choose from: expert, psychic, warrior, and adventurer.
Mhm.
And each of these classes will provide their own unique advantages to the player in different ways. We'll do a deep dive into each class individually. We're going to start off with the warrior, right? That's what you wanted to make, Colin?
Yeah, I was like, let me do the most straightforward build because
Yeah.
I've played Dungeons and Dragons a long time, and it's spells I still gotta think when I'm like like everything else is kind of rote, and then spells I gotta be like, wait, how does this work again? Okay, yeah. So I feel like that's the hardest part of any system is like making sure to understand the magic.
Awesome. And yeah, we're just definitely going to start off with the warrior. So we're going to do the deep dive into the warrior today.
All
Um,
right.
Each class will provide you with a bonus skill or skills, depending on which one you pick. For example,
Mhm.
a psychic you'll get 2 psychic skills. Now you have to be a psychic or take a psychic foci, which we'll jump into in the next section, to be able to use these skills. You cannot get psychic skills unless you do one of those 2 things. It's just not allowed.
Mhm.
Well, a warrior will learn a combat skill, and
Mhm.
you you learn your combat skill.
Yeah.
However, when you pick your skills, it's very important that your skill level cannot raise above 1. There are 4 skill levels or 5 skill levels you get: 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mhm.
If you have a 0 skill, that means you have no bonus and no negative to it.
Mhm.
If you have a 1, you get a +1. If you have a 2, you get a +2. However, if you don't have the skill at all, so that's not a skill 0, if you just don't even have any proficiency in it or expertise,
Mhm.
you get a negative to that roll. So
Ah,
if you want to talk to somebody and you don't have a good talk skill, even if you have a +1 charisma, you now have a -1 to that roll, plus your +1 charisma, which would equal 0 to that roll.
I
Make
see.
sense?
Yeah.
So it's it really emphasizes you picking out your skills and playing to your strengths, which is
Mhm.
something I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
A barbarian probably doesn't know how to pick locks, but they can roll an at 20 and still pick a lock is a little frustrating as a dungeon master.
Yeah. Fate's a fickle mistress.
It is. Where in this game, it's like, yeah, you get a minus to the roll, which is nice. Really lets other players shine instead of you just getting lucky all the time. Because,
Mhm.
and once you reach level 3, that's when you can bring your skill level up to level 2. That we'll go into at
Hmm.
a later time when we go into advanced podcast. Anyways, uh, each skill, each class brings you a different skill. With the warrior, you get a couple really nice ones where you get an additional foci and you get
Mhm.
an additional attack bonus and HP, which is
Okay.
just fantastic if you really want to be that, you know, fighting tank, frontline, sniper, or even assassin class.
Mhm.
Psychics gain something called effort, which is basically your spell slot if you were a warlock.
Ah.
Yeah. So we'll go more into that when we jump into the psychic on a later episode. Once you pick your class, you get to pick foci or focuses. These are the bread and butter of your character and will make your character unique to you. It's almost like your feats, but much more powerful.
Mhm.
Each character at level 1 starts off with a free focus. If you choose expert class or warrior class, you gain an additional focus with limitations, such as you're picking a warrior, so you'll be able to pick an additional focus that is a combat focus.
Ah. I see.
Yes. Adventurers, they get a lot of focuses to start.
Yeah, that's why I
Adventurers,
didn't pick that one. I was like, that's a lot for me to
yeah,
learn.
adventurers are probably if not the most complicated, the second most complicated class to play.
Mhm.
However, you can definitely like min max an adventurer really well if that's what you're into.
Yeah. Okay. So does that
So,
mean we get started?
we got hit points and attack bonuses next, and then
Okay.
equipment and encumbrance.
Oh, there's
And
encumbrance.
oh, dude, encumbrance is going to be the mind breaker. I'm going to be honest. I did my best to make it like not so much, but encumbrance is probably the hardest thing to understand in this game.
But I feel it on a human level because I'm really tired of being in my schlepping era. I don't know. I feel like I go to work and it's like I got to pack my bag for work. I got to pack my gym bag, got to schlep it to the office, got to go to the gym, got to shower, got to step it all to the shower, got to step it all back to my desk. I'm just carrying things all the time.
and it is exhausting, and you are very limited on how much you can do when you are carrying so much.
I get that. I get that. We have a new access system at work where we have to like access with our phone. And when I'm trying to carry all my stuff, and if I went for a run and my shorts don't have pockets, I'm like, they did this just to make me look like a clown. I take it personal.
You should. That's exactly. I actually talked to your boss, and they said that's why they did
Oh my gosh.
it. All right. Hit points and attack bonuses. So, unlike Dungeons and Dragons or other role playing games, everyone gets the same hit die, and that is a d6 plus their constitution modifier. So, if you have a +1 to constitution, you get to add a d6 to it.
Mm-hmm.
Warriors and partial warriors, they get a little extra HP, but we'll jump into that when we get into your class. Even if you have a negative to your constitution, you can't have less than 1 HP.
Yeah.
So, that's nice. Combat in this game is meant to be much more deadly than it is in Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, because there's
Like,
guns, right?
yes,
There's just like
even a
the
go ahead.
technology. Yeah.
Even a top tiered level 10 player can
Mhm.
still be brought low by a group of level 1 players, you know? Like it
Yeah.
has to be a group, but like if each of you it can be very brutal.
It's a
Um
different, I mean, just like when you have like projectile weapons like guns, I
mhm.
mean, that's just a very different form of
Especially since
combat.
guns don't, I mean, realistically, guns, it's not like it's a sword where you have to learn parries. Like you did fencing for
Yeah.
a while. You had to learn
Yeah.
parries, and I think a gun is gun is
Yeah. And
gun.
even when you're hit by a sword, like when I was, or a blade when I was doing epee, you know, like it hits a very specific area. It's just, it's a very different kind of combat.
hmm
Yeah. And that's, I mean, so that's some realism. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, you get shot even if you are, I don't know, built like the Rock, Dwayne Rock Johnson. You still got shot. You know, like
Yeah.
it's gonna hurt. Um. Anyways, attack bonuses are actually pretty simple in Stars Without Number. Your attack bonus is your character class divided by 2, rounded down. So if you're level 1, you get a 0 attack bonus.
Okay.
But if you have a level so that's a 0 attack bonus. However, you get to add your skills modifiers to it. So let's say you are using your laser pistol and you shoot at a bad guy,
Hmm.
right? And you're level 1, you get a 0 attack bonus, and you get to add your skill modifier and your dex to it. So if you have a +1 dex and you have a 1 skill and shoot, you just have a +2 to hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Damage does not add your skill modifier, but it does add your attribute modifier.
Damage is not. Okay.
So like if you have a +1 shoot and a +1 dex, and I shoot my laser pistol, which is a D6, I roll my D6 and I would add 1 for my dex, but I would not add 1 for my shoot.
Yeah. I see that. I got you.
Okay, good. If I, because sometimes I say something and I want everyone to understand. All right.
Yeah. I think once I start writing, like applying it to my sheet,
Mm-hmm.
it'll, the clouds will part.
Yes. So attack bonuses make up about half of your attack modifier. The other half is your skill level,
Mm-hmm.
and the combat skill, and your ability modifier. Most likely, it's going to be dex. There's very few things that use your strength for weapons, and those are only melee, medium, and heavy weapons. Light
Yeah.
weapons always use your dex.
Fair. That's important, when you're building a character to know,
It
because I feel
oh
like strength in Dungeons and Dragons, right, is such a important
for
stat.
your attacking, yes, it's very important
But
for
Dex,
your
yeah,
like
that
you have
makes
to use a
sense.
rapier instead of a long sword in
Yeah.
D&D. So yeah. All right. I do have an example, but I kind of already went over it. So
Okay. So okay, we did attack bonuses and hit points.
yep. Just one note on the attack bonus. If you let's say you don't have a shoot skill, you don't even have a 0 in it, you have nothing, and you choose to shoot your laser pistol, you actually get a -2 to that roll instead of a -1. Combat
Uh,
skills require give you a -2 if you
okay.
don't have that. skill. Yes. Now we're going into equipment.
Yeah. All right.
So, equipment and encumbrance are kind of tied into each other naturally because equipment's what you're carrying, and encumbrance is how much you can carry.
Mm-hmm.
So, the equipment, you have several packs you can pick from when you want for what you want to use as your starting equipment. Or you can roll out how much money you have and then buy equipment, which is if you choose to roll out, it's 2d6 times 100, and that's how much money you have to purchase things. But please note you need your GM's approval for this, because if they're starting you on a tech level 2 planet or a tech level 3 planet, you're not going to have the ability to buy tech level 4 equipment.
Yeah. And I could see someone doing that and then like forgetting to like buy clothes.
Yes.
You know, like
Um,
like you don't even have a jacket. Like if
yeah,
you're on a
and
cold planet, what are you supposed to do?
exactly. And if you really want to start off with the money, I suggest you just pick the civilian pack because you start off with 700 credits
Mm-hmm.
and you start off with secure clothing, which gives you an AC of 13.
Okay.
So there, if you really want the money, just start off as a civilian. It makes your life easier, and it's probably also your dungeon masters. Sorry,
Yeah.
galaxy masters, not dungeon master. We're not playing Dungeons and Dragons.
True.
So you got all these. You got like barbarian, blade, thief, hacker. There's a
Mm.
lot of equipment packages you can pick from, and they most of them start off with weapons, armor, and even comms so that you can text and talk to people over long distances, which is very nice in this game where instead of Dungeons and Dragons, you're like, your party split, you have no ability to communicate. In this game, you're like, yeah, just text each other.
Oh wow. I mean, it's kind of like all those memes where like Romeo and Juliet if they could text. You know, like, oh,
It
I'm
does
pretending to
also make sense.
die, but it's only pretend. Don't freak out.
Yes. So you do get the benefit of being like, hey, we can communicate over long distances, but be wary. There are hackers out there, and if they're looking for the party, you're just
Yeah,
giving them a free information.
true. I mean, our phones track us.
They really do, and it's actually something that you do need to consider in this game.
Yeah.
So there are downsides to having a phone on you. All right. So, encumbrance. Now that you picked out your pack, you have to know how much you can carry. Most
Hmm.
of them start off with a backpack. So, if you do not have a backpack, though, you don't have stowed encumbrance. So, just forget about that. I mean, I guess you can be like, well, I have a bunch of pockets, but that's up to your Galaxy Master. You need a backpack for a stowed encumbrance. So, Cullen, if you have any questions, please feel free just to interrupt me during this because this is a little long and a little, I hope, not too tedious.
Okay.
Okay. The encumbrance works the way encumbrance works is by giving each item an encumbrance value. This value, when added up with all the other equipment, must not exceed your encumbrance score, or you will become encumbered. Your first encumbrance scored is your readied items. Readied items are the items that you have at hand and you can use with an action, such as a player having a gun in a holster. The number of readied items you can have is half of your strength score rounded down. So if you have a strength score of 11, you have an encumbrance of 5 points for readied items.
Okay.
So a pistol has an encumbrance value of 1, but a rifle has an encumbrance value of 2. So if you're carrying a rifle, you have 3 encumbrance points left.
Hmm.
And armor does count towards your readied encumbrance.
Yeah, because it's heavy.
Exactly, it's what you're wearing on you.
Yeah.
So if you're wearing power armor, here, I'll go to the equipment. How much does power armor weigh? Most encumbrances are 1 or 2 points for armor. So, but there are a couple that do have 0 points of encumbrance, which are really nice. Your second encumbrance score is your stowed items. And stowed items are what you have secured away and you need to use an action to obtain. So you have to use an action to grab it before you can use an action to use it.
Ah.
Yes. So naturally you can have a lot more items and you're encumbered. So, I mean, in your stowed encumbrance items, you can have up to your strength score in points for your stowed items. Does that make sense?
So if I had the strength of 10, I have 5 things I can have ready and then 10 things I can have stored.
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
10 points worth of things stored. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Most things do have an encumbrance of 1, but it is important to make sure that you have enough encumbrance.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you do choose to over encumber yourself, you have 2 levels of encumbrance: lightly encumbered and heavily encumbered. Each
Okay.
one is going to kind of give you a little bit of a punishment for being over or lightly encumbered. Lightly encumbered allows for a player to have 2 more readied items. So let's say you have a strength of 10, you now have 7
Mm-hmm.
readied items, and it gives you 4 more stowed encumbrance points. So you could have 7 and 14 with a strength of 10.
Mm-hmm.
However, your movement is reduced down to 7 meters. So your movement starts at 10 meters. Let's just say that's 30 feet. I know it's not, but let's just say that's 30 feet, like for Dungeons and Dragons purposes. You're now down to 7 meters, which would be like 21 feet, 22
Okay.
feet.
Are these meters?
Yes, we play meters in Stars Without Number because Kevin Crawford is, I believe, British.
British. Okay.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
I'm
Um,
quoting.
but yes, you use meters, and each block is a single meter, so you get 10 spots of movement versus 6,
Oh, yeah.
which is nice. Gives you a little bit more ability to kind of move around. Heavily encumbered. Then there's heavily encumbered. Heavily have heavily encumbered
Mm-hmm.
allows for an additional 2 points on top of your lightly encumbered readied items. So if you had a strength of 10, your ready would be 5. If you want to be heavily over encumbered, it would be 9.
Mm.
And you would get an additional 4 on top of lightly, so a total of extra 8. So you'd have 18 stowed item points. However, you're now reduced to half speed, which is 5 meters.
Yeah, you can barely do anything.
Exactly. You're going to be
That's
moving
me
pretty slow.
trying to get my phone out of my backpack while carrying my backpack and my gym bag in shorts without pockets, and I'm also holding my phone and my car keys and my wireless Raycons.
Yeah, Raycon plug
Yeah,
right there.
Raycon plug. So, not sponsored, but maybe.
Hey, if you want to, Raycon. Anyways, that covers encumbrance. Did that make all sense to you at all?
Yeah, I got that.
Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to part 1 of our 2-part podcast on how to build a character. We will be jumping in on how to build a warrior with Cullen in the next episode, so stay tuned.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cullen. I'm a friend of Alex's from college, writer, podcaster. I have a show called Not My Fantasy Podcast where we explore the lore behind fantasy films. So everything from like Lord of the Rings to Disney movies to we're doing time travel movies this month. So definitely check us out. I also we do have an episode on Dungeons and Dragons character building that we did during the WGA and Actors Guild strike, and I also have some tabletop content. I have a podcast called Wanderer's Cove in the Bubblegum Shoe system, and recorded and eventually we posted to YouTube. But the theater I recorded it with Outside In Theater. We recorded actual Dungeons and Dragons actual play about demigods called Camp Oracle. So hopefully you'll have access to that soon. It was streamed on Twitch, but I'm trying to get it out of their vault. And that's all my RPG content. But excited to be here. I've never played Stars Without Number, and I love making characters in these systems. So looking forward to that.